Yeah, I can take it right now. Thank you everyone for joining. And you're recording the meeting, right, Tarun?
Yeah,
Just okay. All right. As mentioned, thank you everyone for the patience. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Zishan Syed. Can you go to the next slide, please, Tarun? Yeah. So my name is Zishan Syed. I am the founder of STEM Tutor 360. And we are presenting this bootcamp preview, which Tarun is going to lead, and Tarun is going to introduce himself in a second here. I just want to give my background. I have my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering from Georgia Tech. I'm currently a product marketing manager at Emerson. So this is not my primary uh, thing, but education is a passion of mine, imparting knowledge as well. So I started this a couple of years ago, and I tutor mostly STEM subjects. So that's why it's called STEM Tutor 360. So whether it's test prep, math, physics, math and science, as well as engineering. So I do offer engineering tutoring as well, mainly focusing on mechanical engineering and college level math classes such as calculus 1, 2, 3, differential equations, physics 1 and 2, and so on. That's my spiel. Turn, take it away.
yeah. Nice to meet you guys. So I'm Tharun, and I do this full time. I a graduate of NYU Stern, and I worked a couple years in finance, and currently for the last like year and a half, I've been working with a lot of students. Really just taking the time to work with students while making the most in with learning and my pastimes and building products around the space. So in terms of like my credentials, I scored a 800 in math, 800 reading on my SAT, and luckily through that, was able to get a lot of experience tutoring kids throughout my college and found that I really loved it. So really enjoy like really the reps and understand the student learner journey and gotten some pretty great reviews from pretty great um, students. So Zishan and I are working on this like boot camp in order to just get a lot of scale with the lessons that there are clearly on the SAT, the patterns that are clearly relevant that a lot of kids miss. So just jumping into the SAT in general, the structure is pretty straightforward. There's going to be a first module in both a reading, writing, and math. Um, and then there's going to be an adaptive one depending on how the performance in the first one went. You need roughly 6 errors, less than 6 to 8 errors in the reading, writing, or the math section in order to get to the hard module. And then in terms of overall time, it's roughly 2 hours, roughly 100 questions total. The way I think of it is sort of like every error is 20 points. So they really add up quick. In order to get to a 1400, you have to have less than roughly 10 to 12 errors. So that's why it's really crucial we minimize as and get as few errors from not knowing content and really just leave it so that like we will capture every content aspect during the boot camp. Beyond that, there's carelessness that's involved. So if you misunderstand questions, that'll add up in a way that we don't want, but at least we can minimize content style like errors. So just jumping into the boot camp, we're gonna do 6 weeks trying to get through all the concepts that are in the reading and writing along with the math. That's gonna be 2 hours per week in math and 2 hours per week in English. We're going to set it up so that over the course of 24 hours, we're going to be able to touch all the different types of topics and skills. Now, it's going to be for $80 for that, and that works out to roughly $20 per hour. And there's a lot of value there. Tutors, can go up to $100 per hour. So, getting this sort of experience straight to the point, along with a person that's had a lot of experience, I think is very great value for kids at your junction in your learning journey. So in terms of how we sort of approach this, it's going to be a lot of seeing questions that you've never seen for the first time. And we're going to get exposure for you, like what is possible in terms of the errors. So there's going to be homework every week. We're going to be scoring that homework and seeing where errors are popping up. And that's going to be generating sort of the questions that we're going to focus on that week. We have had past boot camps. We have an idea of the errors that come up in these sort of sessions with students that have either had no experience with the SAT prior and students that have had experience that are doing well and still getting errors. So we sort of use that data to know what to focus on. In the classes themselves, we'd be walking through problems. There will be a lot of interaction between me, the teacher, and you guys. I'll expect you guys to know certain things. I'll expect you guys to not know certain things. But we're really going to build up a relationship over the 6 weeks, working together through the problems. Now, there's 4 different major sections on the math. There's algebra, advanced math, problem solving, and data analysis, along with geometry. You're going to be able to use Desmos on the SAT, which is great, but we want to use Desmos as a tool to complement our learning and not just as a blind asset, not knowing what we're doing. In terms of the reading and writing, there is information ideas, which is long paragraph text that you're going to have to decipher, and we'll talk through the best approach so that you don't have to waste your time in it. Craft and structure, it's 50-50 in craft and structure about fact-checking options and coming up with answers in your head before you look at the options. I always tell students that a lot of the reading and writing section, it's actually harder because it's multiple choice. And we're going to want to remove answers for certain types of questions. You'll see what I mean, in order to just better understand the clues that are relevant. Expression of ideas is just your ability to get to an answer quickly, to understand what's being conveyed in maybe 2 sentences or across bullet points. You'll see some questions today. And in terms of standard English grammar, we really make it as logical and as plug and chug as possible. We've seen the questions, we know the patterns. Grammar is just fully patterns. So yeah, we're working on, conveying as quickly as we can, sort of getting from like a 600 all the way up to an 800. We're going to make it so that everything is something that you've seen before. We're going to tell you when like something happens, like this question's rare, like it's not fitting the mold because of this reason. We have reasons for every question. Now, I think I skipped a slide. Oh no. So now let's hop into math. I'm going to share my screen. On my whiteboard, and we're going to work through this problem. I'm going to shift what I'm sharing. Oh, I see questions. Let me see if I can answer any. Yeah, so regarding the pattern, you're going to understand what I mean. When you see a problem like this might look like a wordy word problem, but you're going to have to recognize when you're reading this that they're just talking about a linear equation. That's a way that it's a pattern. If you get long word text problems, if you're able to decipher what part of it, right here it says constant rate, that makes it a linear equation, then you already know instantly, oh, I'm talking about linear equations. I have y equals mx plus b ready to go. And in this problem, they're describing 2 different variables changing. They're describing the bushels of corn, and they're describing hours. And it's saying when they just began, they had 24,000 bushels of corn. And at 5 hours, they have 19,350 remaining. So when it comes to y equals mx plus b, when it comes to x and y in general, x is the independent variable and y is the dependent variable. Because the bushels of corn amount depends on the time, and just generally time is usually our independent variable. We know that these points, that there's points in these problems. If there's 24,000 bushels of corn when Hector just started to use the auger, that means X was 0 and Y is 24,000. And we know then when X was 5, Y was 19,350. If you have 2 points, we can actually just use Desmos for this. And many of you might not know, in Desmos, if you go to plus table, you could put points in, and then it can try to predict the equation for you. 2 points is enough to guarantee a straight line. It'll output for me the exact equation. All you have to do is, once you put 2 points, is click this symbol right here. Make sure you're selected to linear regression, and it's giving you the equation itself. So that gives me y equals negative 930x plus 24,000. So I have the linear equation that's in here, that's hidden in here, and it's asking me what is the total number of hours when Hector's going to have 12,840 bushels of corn left. That's just saying y equals 12,840. What's x? So we can already right now know to plug in 12,840 to y, so we can find what the x value is. You could do that by hand, or in Desmos, you could just write y equals 12,840, and it solves it for you. It's going to be at the intersection of the line, which is huge. Imagine if you didn't write y equals 12,840, you wouldn't know where it is. It's going to give you the point right there, 12, 12,840. And the SAT knows you can use Desmos. A problem like this exists to confuse people that know they can use Desmos but not know how to use Desmos. So my first instinct, writing 12,840, makes this a lot easier. So now I know when this intersection exists, that x has to be 12. So the answer to this is 12 hours. The next problem, you can't see my screen, but the next problem I have in my slide, I'm just going to bring this over. And this is another example of how we can use patterns. For this problem here, notice how all the options are equations. All of them are having x and p in it. And the way this is written, it's reminiscent of y equals mx plus b. So instead of y, they don't have y, they have p. And the way this is set up, I'm going to write x comma p is the point I'm looking for. So I'll give you guys 10 seconds to just read through this question, see if you guys can figure out the answer. Well, to understand the question. It's a lot of words. So I don't really have to understand too much because I know all my options are equations. One trick we teach in the bootcamp is all I need to do is find a point that works. The question is very clearly telling me here P and here X. P percent of an adult's daily allowance of potassium is provided by X servings of crunchy grain cereal. Which of the following expresses P in terms of X? Let's look for possible combinations of X comma P that work. Skimming through, they give you a bunch of numbers. But P represents percent. Here, my eye goes straight to this, the percent. So there is some period where that leads me to a 5 being the P. It's saying 5% is the daily allowance for adults. We're wondering how many servings do I need in order to hit that 5%? And it says each serving provides 5%. So that's 1,5. I can plug this in to all the options. And this looks confusing, these options, but I'm just going to plug in x equals 1 and see which one outputs p is 5. So option A is out. That gives me 0.5. Option B looks good. Option C is out. It doesn't give me 5. Option D is out. It doesn't give me 5. The answer is B. If I test another point, 2 comma 10, because each box gives me 5%, only B continues to work. This is the right answer. So in that way, the pattern being all the options are equations, I just have to find a point that exists that completely works. Anytime they're asking you for which equation is right, that means they gave you enough details to find points that work. It wouldn't be possible to come up with an equation otherwise. We're kind of working backwards, knowing that there has to be a point in order to just cut through all the useless information. Now, the next problem I have on my slides, I'll just grab it and bring it over. Is this. And this can look a little intimidating. I'll give you guys 30 seconds just to think through and read it. All right, that's 30 seconds. It might look intimidating, but what I teach in the boot camp, same way whenever you see a linear equation, you have to just think y equals mx plus b. Anytime you see an exponential function, it's going to have to do with this equation here. This is the easiest way to think and apply exponential functions on the SAT. This is generally all you need to understand where things should go. Most of the time with questions about exponential functions, it's going to be about plugging in stuff until there's one variable left to solve for. And what this question is saying is we want to find n, and n is months. What this equation is saying that the amount of something is equal to the starting point times 1 plus the rate to the number of compounding periods. So just taking a step back to understand this equation, let's say I have 100 sheep and I have double the sheep every single year. My initial would be 100. My rate would be 100%. And I get that through the equation percent change equals new minus old divided by old times 100. So I just take one period and a second period to designate, this is how much growth happens in one compounding period. 200 minus 100 divided by 100 gets me 1. And then 1 times 100 gets me 100%. This is percent change. This is what went in here. If something is doubling, that means the growth is 100%. That's why inside this parenthesis, we can end up with 2, because 1 plus 100% is just 2, because this 1 represents 100%. Now, the number of periods, that's the number of compounding periods, that's going to represent how much time is passing. So we're looking to solve for n in this problem up here. So let's go back to the actual problem. Oh, and real quick, sorry. For the number of sheep here, if I said t is 5, I'd realize really quickly with this equation that 2 to the 5th power is 32. I'd end up with 3,200 sheep. So that's how we do it fast. Now, in this problem here, we're given the initial. We're given 1 plus the rate. We don't know t, and we don't know p of t. But it's asking us for what's the number of months when it increases by 4%. If we're starting with 260, I can actually just plug in 260 times 1.04 to be the P of t. So then my equation looks like this. And if I had, let's say, 3x is equal to 3x squared, something like that, do you see how I could just divide both sides by this 3? This is the same logic in here. I could divide both sides by 260. Then I'd get 1.04 is equal to 1.04 to the 6 over 4 times t power. At this point, I could just set the exponents equal to each other. 1 is equal to 6 over 4 times t. So t is equal to 2/3. The question is asking for what's the number of months. T represents the number of years. So all I need to know is every 2/3 of a year, it's going up by 4%. So that means 2/3 of a year, it's going up every 8 months. So we got this very simply, very logically, because we know that this equation is crucial. And because we know if we can just plug in all values except one variable, we could solve for that variable. And clearly the question is asking for how much time passes. Now, here's another way that the exponential function can end up being used. Another problem. And when you first look at this, a lot of kids are like confused at what to do. There's a lot of big numbers. All they give you is the number that they're expecting you to get to. And this table with like different points. I'm going to put 30 seconds. Just think through it. I'm answering a question in the chat. Okay, that's 30 seconds. So using the equation I mentioned before, amount equals initial times 1 plus the rate to the number of compounding periods. We have the amount it's going to end up at down here, 5.12 times 10 to the 8th. We have the initial. We can call 2.5 times 10 to the 5th the initial, or we could look for day 0. And I'm going to say let's look for day 0. Actually, we'll hold off on that. Let's use 2.5 times 10 to the 5th. And we need to find the rate now. And so how do I get the rate? I'm going to take 5 times 10 to the 5th minus 2.5 times 10 to the 5th divided by 2.5 times 10 to the 5th. And I think you guys can see, if you know your scientific notation, the numerator is just going to end up being 2.5 times 10 to the 5th. Or you can use a calculator to figure that out. And it's getting divided by the same number. So clearly it's going up by 100%. So it's doubling. And we don't know the exponent. It's let's call it t for now. T representing the number of days. But I want you guys to notice something. We start at day 1. And what the exponent has to be is the number of compounding periods. So because we're starting at day 1, we have to call it, let's say, t minus 1 instead. Now, if I use Desmos, as a calculator. 5.12 times 10 to the 8th divided by 2.5 times 10 to the 5th. That gives me 2048. So I'm dividing both sides by this number. I mean, 2048 is equal to 2 to the t minus 1 power. And 2048, that's 2 to some power. FYI, if I have just one variable in an equation, Desmos will just solve it for me. Just make sure if you call it something like t, you have to call it x instead. So if I write 2048 is equal to 2 to the x minus 1 power, I find that on day 12, that's the answer. On day 12, my equation reaches this amount. And that's one way to get this problem. It's sometimes you're not getting this much information with the table, so we'll have to do it that way. But because they gave us 3 points, remember before when I used 2 points to be able to guarantee a linear equation? 2 points is all I need also for an exponential equation. I could have just from the beginning, if I knew what the things we're going to teach at the bootcamp, I could just put in that exact, I could just put in 2 of these exact points. Oh, and by the way, when I found t is 12 before, that makes the answer 11 because it's t minus 1. Just get that straight right now. T is 12, day 12, 11 days have passed. Anyway, 5.0 times 10 to the 5th. Oops, this is linear. I'm going to exponential. Remember the trick I said before? I need to find 5.112 times 10 to the 8th. This is going to be a giant graph. So I'm just going to write this out. Y equals 5.12 times 10 to the 8th. And this will make it easier for me to find. I'm just going to look for a horizontal line. There. And so the answer is no 12. Yeah, on which day would the number reach? So it's the 12th day. 11 compounding periods have passed, it's the 12th day. Now, moving on, let's go into English. I'm going to change my screen. These patterns, knowing what to do when given a certain question, very much relevant in English. We're going to want to build good habits from the beginning. When you get a question like this, where it's asking you what data from the table supports the conclusion, you don't need to read the whole text yet. First, isolate the conclusion and see if it's understandable by itself. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds just to look at everything, see if you'll know what to do. What I want you to do here is just read the highlighted and look at the chart and see if you can come up with what supports that conclusion. If you need to read the rest of this text to understand, try. Go ahead. Okay, that's 30 seconds. Hopefully you guys by now have read through it and realized the claim, the conclusion is that they're thinking these meteorites are not from Earth. They're thinking these meteorites, because of the nucleobases, are not the results of contamination on Earth. All the table gives us is these nucleobases on the left here, and they tell us the amount of the concentration in the meteorite samples and in the soil sample. What you could be able to do is get the answer from just this table and this conclusion. You don't really need the rest of this text, like I said. What we see is there's two different nucleobases that are only on the meteorite, not in the soil sample. Already we know this isoguanine and purine is the proof for why we think this way, that it's not from Earth, it's completely from space. Look at these other answers. They mention things that we wouldn't have come up with in our head if we were forced to just look at the graph and that conclusion. This is rated 3 difficulty by the question bank. The majority of kids get this wrong, but it was this simple, and we don't need to read all this text. Remember, guys, the math section is 35 minutes, 22 problems. The English section is 32 minutes, 27 problems. Time is a lot more valuable on the English section because it might seem like you have to read all this text, but you have to get very well at knowing what specifically matters. And in these questions, you might not need the rest of the text. You're looking for things like references to the rest of the text or missing logic to better understand the chart or conclusion. This right here, you could read this conclusion and realize I have everything I need. You just need experience. Now, same thing in this type of problem. They have a chart and they gave you this paragraph with a bunch of context. What you need to do in these questions is read the text fully, come up with, based on transitions or theses or the direction that they're taking, what should go in the blank, and whatever goes in the blank is because of this chart here. So I want you guys to think this through. I'll give you guys 45 seconds. Just think through what in the chart goes in the blank based on, I'll give you a hint. This word, however, implies what goes in the blank here is contrary to what was said right before. Okay, that's 45 seconds. So I want you guys to pay attention here. They said in the sentence right before the sentence with the blank that they think that the Neanderthals really valued the seafloor shell tools. So in this chart here, they're giving you this detail, the number of tools that are from the beach and the number of tools that are from the seafloor. It's not highlighted, but what they're saying is in the rest of the text that there's beach tools and seafloor tools. And what I highlighted in red is that they more valued the seafloor shell tools. However, the team also concluded that those tools were likely more challenging to obtain, noting that blank. Let's look at the chart here. Do you see how the number of tools that are from the seafloor is less? That really stands out. Those numbers are less, even though they're more valuable. That could be evidence, right, of how they're more challenging to obtain, because even though they're more valuable, there's less of them. And that's the exact answer. If you were going to look through these 4 wordy answers for what's right, You have to be wary about getting infected and thinking the way that they're wanting to make you think. It's pure and more likely that you're going to arrive at what makes sense if you block these answers out and just actually practice critical thinking and critical reasoning. That's how you can handle these problems fast without getting tricked. Now, vocab is another place where we're going to want to be able to come up with the answers in our head. You look at these options. Maybe some of you don't know what discernible is. Let me just make it a little simpler. Discernible very straightforwardly means clear, easy to understand. Now, reading through this whole thing, I'm going to give you guys 40 seconds. What would you come up with as the answer? Remember, the clue could come from anywhere. The deal with these is they changed it from vocabulary to vocabulary and context. You need the clues around the blank to come up with the answer. Okay, that's 45 seconds. So it's going to be really hard right now if you don't have a word in mind. Once you knew that discernible means clear, A and B seem like a toss up. So why would they give you a question like this where two answers both seem like they work there? I think a lot of you are probably in your head coming up with a word like they lacked any explanation. But that's not the case. Let me read it out loud. Maybe that'll make it easy for you to see what's going on. Given the conditions in binary star systems should make planetary formation nearly impossible, it's not surprising that the existence of planets in such systems has lacked blank explanation. These people shed light on the subject when they use modeling to determine a complex set of factors that could support planets' development. It sounds like there's a complex explanation. Discernible means figure outable or understandable. But straightforward just very much comes out as simple. Because they said it's a complex explanation, what we should have came up with in the blank before we even looked at the options is it's going to lack a simple explanation. But they could have easily, for these answer choices, have replaced discernible with clear. And the answer would still be B because we're always looking for a synonym of just simple. Not easy to understand. We're looking for simple and straightforward because that's the opposite of complex. Now, here's a harder question, and I hope you guys take into heart what I'm saying. The clues around dictate what goes in the blank. I'm going to give you guys 45 seconds to try this out. Try to come up with the word in the blank first, and then look at the options. Okay, that's 45 seconds. And there's two ways to get this answer. What most of you guys will probably be like thinking towards is such blank stimuli actually offer less relief than a stimulus that seems less benign. You're thinking the word in the blank could be benign. And for most of you, like that's not really helpful if you don't know what benign means. But they gave another out to figure out what goes in the blank. The word such indicates the clue was already given. The word such is saying like like this. It's saying such blank stimuli. Let's look for an adjective given to the stimuli earlier. It says, if you read through this, they're trying to avoid an allergic reaction. And they found that while harmless applications of vibration or warming can provide a temporary distraction, do you guys hear how the stimuli that can stop an allergic reaction are the applications of vibration or warming? That's the stimuli, and the adjective they used was harmless. Such harmless stimuli actually offer less relief. Exactly. Like the blank, it's harmless. That's what goes there. And if you guys know what benign means harmless. So there's two different ways to get the answer here. And when you look at these options, you can't think it's deceptive because there's no clue for deceptive. You're getting applications of vibration or warming. You're not getting tricked in any way. That's what deceptive means. Impractical doesn't make sense here either. If you're getting vibration or warming to prevent a allergic reaction, that's pretty practical. Maybe you don't know what novel means. Novel means new. Novel means like something that has not been heard of before. If you knew what A, C, and D meant, it's not actually a problem if you know that the blank is harmless, because then it's going to be the word you don't know the meaning of. Maybe innocuous means harmless. So because we came up with an answer in our head, multiple choice where one word is hard is not really a problem. Now, in the grammar section, this type of question type could pop up. And I want you guys to like really lock in and notice how unique this looks for a grammar question. There's long blocks of text that are reordered around that, you know, nothing changing much punctuation wise. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds to try to think through what might be the answer, and I'll show you guys the approach. Okay, that's 3 seconds. These questions always have a modifying phrase. They always have a modifying phrase, and what the modifying phrase does is indicate what the subject has to be. In assessing the films of Japanese director Akira Kurosawa, that means the subject has to be an assessor of the films. How do you find the subjects that are in each options? If you can indicate the main verb in each of these options, it's whatever does the action, or it's a noun that takes the place of like what does the action. Now, what have focused on Kurosawa's use of Western literary sources? In option A, that's the critics. The critics have focused. So in A, the subject is many critics. In B, it's not Kurosawa. If I said my brother's car is cool, I'm only saying the car is cool. I'm not saying the brother is cool. Same way in option B, what has been the focus? It's the use of Western literary sources. That was the subject. C is a special case. The word are, that's like to be. So all C needs for the subject for that are is something to take that place of like, there are many critics. Where are many critics? There are many critics. In that way, it's existing like doing the action of just to be many critics. In D, more easily, it's what has been on Kurosawa's use of Western literary sources. It's the focus. So, whichever one of these four subjects, many critics, use, there, the focus, um, whichever one is assessing the films would be the answer because that modifying phrase has to link to the subject. Maybe you guys can tell the answer is A. These questions are easy and should get down to 0% error once you've had an experience with them. There is a modifying phrase and you just need to match up what the subject that does the action is. So that's all on the bootcamp strategies that we have today. There's more. There's lots of different question types on the SAT, lots of patterns, and we're really focused on getting you guys as many problems as possible. Um, so I hope you guys are interested in learning more. We have a QR code here that you guys should scan to find our website. And Zishan, anything to add?
Yeah, I think if you can answer some of the questions in the chat,
Mm-hmm.
Tarun, maybe in the next
Yeah,
5 minutes or so. Thank you.
yeah. So, someone asked a question about patterns. I hope you guys saw with the walkthrough here. Um, similar similar concepts keep popping up, and once we know what the concept is, we know what to do. You see a linear equation, y equals mx plus b comes to mind. You see an exponential function, that exponential formula, the way I wrote it, comes to mind. You see a grammar question with long blocks of text reordered around. We know we're going to have to just focus on the subject and modifying phrase. Does the SAT repeat the same thing over and over again? Yes, in different ways. Yep. Now, Zishan, perhaps you're the best person to answer RC's question.
Yeah. So, this what Tarun went over for both math and English um, stands in for a period of trial, right? So we're not offering a separate trial, but this, Tarun, is going over so many questions, going out of his way to explain everything. Is a stand-in for that trial, and you would really understand how he approaches things. So the boot camp will be more of this, but in a broader sense, more problems, more topics, right? We only touched a few topics here.
Yeah.
For only one subject, we can see what the response is in terms of who is registered. We are capping registration at 10 students for this fall bootcamp fall cohort, right? Um, and for the third one, Tarun, I think you're better
Yeah.
at answering that than I am.
Yeah. So for English, we're going to talk to you about the best approach. And like Zishan said, we're going to handle problem after problem after problem. Um, we assign roughly 80 problems to up to 200 by the end of the boot camp, um, across math and English, as homework. So there's just so many opportunity to like see what your weaknesses are to get it up there. And same way like I've taught today, I teach in the class and it's going to be much more interactive. I will literally have students walk through the problem with me to make sure they're thinking the right way, step by step. So there's a lot of self work with homework, but there's also a lot of going over problems and thought processes. Um, yeah, next question. Let's see.
So the next question is, do you offer scholarships or financial aid? RC, you can maybe send an email to back to me after we send the recording. So this is a recorded session. The recording will be sent out by on the same email that you registered at, and we can talk further regarding this. Currently, I don't know whether we're going to be able to do that. As mentioned, it's only $480 for 24 hours, right? So that comes out to be $20 per hour. That is pretty a pretty good deal, right? And we are already, so Tarun, we are ending our boot camp, current August 22nd boot camp, right? You
Mhm.
ended your solo one today, and
Mhm.
tomorrow is our tandem one that we're ending. So we've already done two boot camps this summer, and the summer has come to an end. But this is so you will be the third batch of this, and this is really focused on folks who might be taking it on in October, right? And then what is the ratio of students? So again, we're capping it at 10 students, and Tarun is going to be the sole teacher. And one thing I do want to mention, Tarun, sorry, I'm taking more of your time. One thing I do want to stress is this boot camp is for you, right? For you to improve. And the way you will improve is to follow Tarun's, instructions to the T. That means when he's asking you questions in class, you got to answer, you got to do your best, right? And if you don't get it, then Tarun is there to help. Also, the work that is provided to you that you have to do after the sessions, okay, will determine how well you do in the actual SAT, right? We have had students who, are not doing their work week in, week out, and they tend to struggle. So that is very important. The Loda also asked, do you have Saturday and Sunday sessions? So these sessions are actually going to be on Saturdays and Sundays, right? So as Tarun mentioned, two classes a week. Saturday from 3 to 5, right, Tarun?
Yeah.
Central time, and Sunday also from 3 to 5 Central time, right? So if you're in Eastern, it'll be four to
Yes.
six. Pacific from 1 to 3. So it is going to be only on the weekends. We understand school has started, so we wanted to make everything on the weekend. The boot camp starts on the 22nd. What we can do is we can send you the, if you registered for this boot camp, we can send you the recordings for the first one because it starts on August 22nd, and the student can start, attending in person on the 23rd. Okay, so the first recording might be just sent out for anyone who is taking the August 22nd and who wants to do it again in October. Okay. The question is only English offered? Again, that will really depend on how many people register for the whole thing. If at the end there is still a spot or two left, then we can offer for English only. Okay, RC? Where are the questions that are assigned during the boot camp sourced from? Tarun?
Yeah, we basically just have a chest of questions from different sources that we've liked, and a lot of them are from the question bank. Some of them are from Princeton Review practice problems. Um, some are from other sources where we're like, this question matches the patterns that we expect from official SAT questions.
From College Board, right? Um,
Yeah, exactly. If it there's plenty of Princeton Review and Kaplan questions that don't fit that category, like that we feel like are purposely going out of their way to trick the student, misleading like words and things, and we don't have those in our boot camp.
okay.
Just fair questions that fit the patterns.
Yeah. Sorry, a very great point, RC, and I think that's why Loda asked the same thing. We unfortunately put a typo in there, Tarun. Reading and writing is going to be on Saturdays, and math is going to be on Sundays. Correct,
Reading and writing is going to be on
Tarun?
Saturdays, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. So on this slide, we're showing it on Saturday and Wednesday. So that's why there was
Mm,
confusion. So again,
right.
sorry, reading and writing on Saturdays, math on Sundays. The email that I'll send out to everyone with the recording will have the correct date. If you go on the website, Tarun, do you mind?
Hmm.
I know we're running out of time. Do you mind just opening up the this link
Yeah. I let me
on
pull it
your,
up.
yeah.
Second. Okay. This link.
Yes. So this one tells you exactly when it is, right? Start Saturday and then Sunday. So math is going to be Sundays from 3 to 5, and then reading and writing is going to be from Saturdays 3 to 5, right? That's
Mhm.
that's how it is. And then you can just go up a turn, please. You can click on the enroll button and make the payment and or sign up first and then make the payment to register the student. Okay. Loda, when is the next boot camp? I'm not sure, to be honest. We are going to be focusing on this boot camp for now. Tone, if we offer another boot camp, this is going to probably start next month, right? The
Yeah.
middle of next month or so. And that might be for the December test date, right? Focusing on the December test
Mhm.
date. But yeah, okay. I say thank you to everyone for joining, right, Tarun? I think that's it for
Mhm.
us.
Bye, guys.
Okay. Thank you very much. Goodbye.